Here we go. Welcome, everyone. See 248 people joining us. That's just on Zoom. So, welcome all you early arrivers who made it into the Zoom room. I think past a certain number, it looks like that number might be 250, or no, maybe it's 300. The rest of you are watching on YouTube via our very first ever YouTube live stream. So, I also want to welcome the YouTube live streaming viewers. Um, One thing I want to point out before we get started, which is the Q&A button. You should see that in the Zoom toolbar. And what that allows you to do is to type in a question in a special place that is dedicated for questions instead of just the chat, which will then display those questions to us. And those will be the questions that we address, okay, along with some that I've already prepared. You also have the ability, if you open up that questions panel, to upvote other people's questions that you want to see addressed. Sound good? All right. Let's welcome our guest, Francesco, Mr. Tool Finder.
Hello, Tiago. You all right?
Yeah. So, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Last time we chatted, like I was saying, we just chatted apps and tools the whole time, and of course methodologies as well. So this should be a good one.
Yes. So I want to kind of set the context here for everyone, for why we're having this little get together, this little virtual gathering, which is that so we we and I constantly get asked, like every day, all day, which tool should I use? Which productivity app, which note-taking app, which task manager, which calendar app, what tool, what platform should I be on? And I never know what to say. I never know what to answer because because I tend to focus kind of on the framework level and the method level. So I really try my best to create frameworks and methods that can be applied in any tool. That's the first reason. But the second reason is that um, the platform and the app does matter. It does, as you know, as we all know, powerfully shape your behavior and your thinking. But surprisingly, you kind of need to know and be familiar with different apps to be able to speak to them, right? Like I know Evernote inside out, but that paradoxically does not qualify me or allow me in any way to tell or to advise any given person as to whether they should use Evernote because I just don't know what even the other options are or what's good or bad about them or how they compare or anything like that. So I never know what to say in response to that question, although it's an important one. And so I just thought, and I was talking to the team, and we thought, well, who do we look to? Who do we trust for advice and guidance on the selection of productivity tools and software? And that's you. For years, I have looked to you as the app reviewer and app expert extraordinaire. You've been doing it for years. You've actually reviewed, I think at this point, is it over 600 different software platforms?
Yes,
That's
sadly.
in some circles that might be sad. Around here,
It-
you
it's
are a
cool.
god. You're a god.
The thing is, it's the most unproductive job in the world, review productivity apps.
Hey, you keep switching around so that we don't have to. That could be one
Yes.
of your
Yeah.
excuse me. So that's what I wanted to do is talk about the app landscape. What's new, what's different, what's changed. Uh, some big new trends like AI, how that's shaped things. Talk about some of the ways that you tend to guide people, some of your frameworks for how to choose an app in the first place. And then a bunch of other questions related to this kind of all-important choice. Sound good?
That sounds beautiful. Yeah. Lovely.
Okay. So don't hesitate, everyone, to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to start with some of my questions that I want to selfishly ask, and then we'll turn to yours. So the first one, Francesco, is let's start like by zooming out at the full landscape of productivity software in 2025.
Mhm.
Um, if you're at 10,000 feet in a plane flying over productivity land and surveying your domain. What do you see as what does that landscape look like? How is it shifting? Like, what do you see as the big movements or the big trends or changes today?
hmm Yeah, it's a really good question, because as you're looking at tools, you just want to be able to know, like, how are they adapting? Am I going to be stuck in a past tool that's maybe potentially sort of bringing me down? And I'd say the sort of biggest productivity tool trend at the moment is that the concept of productivity itself in productivity apps is drastically changing from administration being less of a part of it.
Hmm.
So I think the definition of productivity tools is something around managing overload, organizing your time, and making your processes and workflows more efficient.
Mhm.
But that concept in itself is starting to degrade because you moving your notes around, you organizing your tasks, and you reshaping your calendar manually is going to become a thing of the past because AI, buzzword, is going to do that for you. So it's it's looking drastically different because the tools that we do use now are quite manual in a sense, but that is all going to change.
Mhm.
And in a way, it's sort of changing the rules of productivity tools into becoming more action-oriented
Mhm.
workspaces
You
Mhm.
watch TV,
where
whatever you want to do, dear.
you essentially you essentially bring your focus into how do you connect up an app to another app and get small errands done for you? How do I efficiently improve my day versus micromanaging it? Um, and those apps that we know now in a sense that our productivity apps will become mindfulness applications. So you organizing your notes and reshuffling your tasks and calendar, that will become a mindful activity versus actually being productive. So I think that's probably going to happen within a sort of definite 3 to 5 year window. And we're already seeing it happen with a lot of tools and examples. They're taking small elements and replacing those processes.
Interesting. So that's such a good observation that it's funny if you think back to traditional productivity, pre-AI productivity, so much of it was the equivalent of basically like clerical work. It was like something an administrative assistant would do, typing little boxes and doing little manual little things. And you're saying that AI is just going to kind of take over that administrative type labor.
Yeah, I think if you look at your typical day in your job now, I would say that around about 40% of it is administrative work. It's just small things that you do that you just, unless you delegate to somebody else, which you will eventually be able to do that with AI, it is quite a big portion of your day.
Yeah.
But the other 60% is going to become one of two things. It's going to become decision making or creativity.
Mm,
So that's why productivity apps are going to shift their focus because it's going to be about what are the quality of your decisions and how are they going to have a knock-on effect with the workflows and actions that you have? And what's the quality of your creativity in what the output is going to be? So that's where I think it's heading. It's going to change what we call productivity apps today, but it's definitely heading there.
Interesting. I love that distinction into the qual it's like quantity from we're going from quantity to quality. Instead of the quantity of tasks you can check off in a day, it's being split into, you said, the quality of your decision making and the quality of your creativity.
Yes, yes. The best analogy I have is Iron Man. So if you think of Tony Stark when he's in that movie and he's talking to the AI assistant, the AI assistant's going off and doing things for him. And the difference between me and Tony Stark using it, hypothetically, is that his quality of his decision making and creativity will be vastly better than mine.
Mm,
So it's whoever's in the driver's seat that will change the outcome of your productivity software.
Yeah, fascinating. I have more follow-up questions, but I want to move on here to your RTO method. Okay. So I wanted to touch on this early on because this fantastic framework that you've developed for which is pretty timeless and pretty evergreen, right? It doesn't change every few months as new products come out. But it's such a great way of sort of filtering and focusing someone's approach to deciding which app to use. I know you have videos on it and you've talked about it extensively, but I wonder if you could briefly if you could briefly explain what is involved in the RTO method.
Yeah, of course. So there's this sort of concept that I think you go through different career changes, different life changes. Like us going from sort of professional to now sort of dad as well, hat on. We sort of go through these cycles every 3 to 5 years, and that's commonly what I see from communicating with people over the last 10 years about productivity apps is that they change apps every sort of 3 to 5 years, as do those cycles. I think that's become a lot faster, but the process behind it hasn't changed. So,
Mm.
because of AI, it may be sort of 2 to 3 years versus that sort of time span. But the RTO method is really simple. It's research, trial, and optimize. And the reason why I set it out like this is because when people are trying to find a application, a lot of the time they have shiny object syndrome. It's a really classic one. I probably cause it a lot of the time through our sites and things like that. But it's the idea of just jumping around apps to try and find something. So I thought several years ago, I thought we need a system that people can follow, that if they get to the point where they need to change app, that they can just follow it in a sequence. So research is the first part of that. And very briefly, it's really important to be able to establish the needs of your tool before you jump in. So it's sort of like finding a house. What you've got to have is like the must-haves and the things that you're okay to compromise on. So typically, a lot of people, when they look at all-in-one workspaces, they think that it will do all of those tools, but likelihood is that it will do an 80% good job on a certain experience. So it's working out what your must-haves and what your can live without haves. And then the second part of the process is trial. And this is to essentially take your shortlist of the apps that you've done thorough research on and narrowed your choices down. And you do a 90-day trial where you're forced into a fixed 90-day period with the tool. And the reason why it's a forced fixed 90 days, obviously optional, but I try to push that it's forced. It's so that you can get acquainted with the app, and by the end of it, if you love it, you can carry on. If you don't love it, you have a diatribe of ways to improve your research next time. And its
Mhm.
likelihood is that you will only go for the RTO method 2 times because of that, because you've narrowed those choices down. And then the third one is again relates to methodologies like the second brain and all of the other methodologies that are out there, where you need to optimize, because optimizing is really, really important because you need to align it with the quality of your industry. So people who are doing your job learn how they can use a tool and optimize it for their role.
Mhm.
And then also just learning everything you can about the feature so you're maximizing it and you can stay with it for as long as possible. And a sort of final note on that is that I compare a lot of productivity apps to like moving house. You don't want to move house often because it's stressful for money, effort,
Mhm.
and sort of time as well. So, what you want to do is you just want to have minimal friction. You want to stay there as long as you can. Um, but of course, today's world is, important to be not necessarily sticking down with an app for 10 years. But the least frequent you can do it, the better, really.
Yeah, this is so important and powerful. I want to contrast the RTO method against what people tend to do, which you could call the JTO method, which is jump on the newest cool app that all the cool people are using without considering any other option. That's the J. Then the T is meticulously transfer all my data, spend hours and hours in a massive migration from the old thing to the new thing. And then O is like obsess. Make it my whole identity, obsess about it, post online incessantly, make it my whole world, and then in a couple of weeks you give it all up because you didn't consider other options, you didn't, trial it for a certain amount of time, and you're spent way too much time on it to the point where it's now like way too complicated. So I like your approach much better than the typical one.
Yeah, yeah. It's you're right though. It's so important because there's like so many influencers out there now who talk about different apps and you need to align it with your needs because it's so important. Like I got absolutely berated a couple of years into using Notion that I was deciding that wasn't right for me, but it wasn't right for me, so I don't use it. Whereas it's important to find that right one for you.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, so with that that kind of general advice of, go through a process of researching and trialing and only then optimizing whichever tool you're considering. Um, let's talk about a very beginner, someone who's new to this whole space of productivity apps, and they don't even know which apps to RTO. Like what to even
Yeah, of
start.
course.
There's like 1,000 options. So like, do you have like something like a starter kit or like an app where you're like, this should be, or these ones should be the first ones that you trial? Like, what is your kind of entry point for people into this space?
Yeah, it's a good question. I sort of lean on the sort of what David Allen mentioned in getting things done with for this because he says that there are sort of three core apps there: tasks, notes, and calendar.
Mhm.
The lines are getting slightly blurred into what they are, but I would say that um, they're a good starting point. If you have a task management software, you can manage what you need to do. If you've got a note-taking app, you can write down uh, projects or your notes just to get sort of started. And then calendar is your events and activities. But I would say that it depends on what you're willing to compromise with each of those apps. So if you're starting out and you're willing to have a fairly relaxed to-do list application and calendar app, then you may be able to combine the task and calendar because they're a lot easier. There are also apps that combine tasks and notes, and you
Mhm.
can have your calendar separate. So 2 to 3 apps, I think, is a good starting point for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And all of the other stuff, I think, is a bonus a lot of the time.
Mhm. So focus on the core functions, the core tools. It's like if you're a carpenter, start with like a hammer, a screwdriver, and a wrench. Don't be getting some like circular buzz saw as your first tool.
Yes,
Right?
yeah, yeah. No buzzsaws.
And then do you generally like talking about specific apps? Like imagine someone's in this, listening to this and they've literally never tried a productivity app and they're already overwhelmed at the options. Do you have one or a few, or do you have like a go-to like the default one on iOS or the default one on Android? Any sort of beginner advice like that for specifically which one to choose?
Yeah, like the thing is, I think it's important to establish like what you're comfortable with at the start. Like for some people, their iPhone and the Android phone's native options are a good solution. So for Google Android users, it's Google Tasks, Google Keep, and Google Calendar. For iOS, it's Apple Notes, Apple
Mhm.
Reminders, and iCalendar. I can't remember what it's called anymore. And I think there are good starting points, but if you're looking for something that's slightly more out there, and I commonly call this the mother-in-law solution. So I would recommend these to my mother-in-law, who's not tech savvy but able to expand in the future. So I'd say my recommendations are Todoist for tasks. And then my sort of second option is normally for notes, it would probably be something like Evernote. And then for calendar, I would probably go for Google Calendar or something like that because you can The benefit to Google Calendar is you can build out, you can choose another option and plug it in more easily.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd say those are sort of the basic starter kit, I would say.
Okay, so what I'm hearing in that is start with relatively simpler, more basic, feature limited default apps as a kind
Mhm.
of baseline, and only then if they don't meet your needs, if you start seeing problems with them, only then upgrade to third-party software.
Yeah, like you're sort of with those sort of basics, you're sort of thrown into the trial side of RTO.
Mm.
So that gives you an opportunity to start journaling or writing down what experiences you've had with those apps and what you would potentially like to see in terms of output. So
Interesting. Okay. So I think we should move to AI because that seems to be the main topic in the chat here and probably on a lot of people's minds. But specifically, so I love that you're like an independent, like reviewer and commenter and critic like me, and so we can talk crap on anyone we want.
yeah, we're lucky to do that.
Yes, yes, it's one of the perks, one of the job perks. But I'm curious in your thoughts. So we just did a video on Ample Note, which
Mhm.
is one of many of these like Life OS or life management apps that it seems like are kind of on the rise. It's
Mhm.
platforms that are trying to do everything, right? Like you mentioned
Yes.
all those categories. They're trying to say, no, their pitch is always the same. No, you don't have to use all these different apps for this and that. We can do it all. We can do everything for you, right?
Yeah.
And and with I think Notion being kind of the 500-pound gorilla in the room, just like looming over the whole category as kind of the dominant one, right? I'm so curious though. I've always been wary of those personally because I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket and because they seem to create a lot of work. Like especially Notion. When I watch these Notion walkthrough videos, I'm just like, okay, but when does the work get done? Like when do you actually do things? And then so there's so but these platforms just keep getting bigger. They take on more and
Mm,
more features, more and more functions. Now Notion is doing mail. Now this note-taking app wants to do your calendar. They're metastasizing. And then on the other hand, you have AI, which is like almost doing the opposite, offering to hide and to abstract away more and more detail and to just do it for you. I'm
mm.
curious, like, are those two trends, are they in conflict? Are they going to collide? Do you see them as complementary? Like, I'm curious how you see those things relating.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? I think when we last chatted about it, it wasn't like that. At the time, I think it was pre-AI and it was not sort of the same. But now, like without saying a developer's role, it's a lot easier to be able to implement AI solutions in your tools. So I think you're right. I think we're going to see more sort of clashing with these all-in-ones, adding more and more optionality because the development for it is a lot easier. And that's where I think the behind the scenes stuff with AI, like it being able to do more agentic based workflows like errands for you in the background, will become more important than the actual abilities of core features, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So, for example, I really like these sort of all in ones, but it's this conversation of compromise for the user. So, if you're happy with ClickUp, hypothetically, doing a calendar feature, if you're happy with that and it ticks your boxes, then that's fine. That you might be sort of a 75 to 80% quality type of person.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're somebody that is like, no, I'm staunch on a calendar app being very specific and have these hyper features, then you need to have a separate calendar app. But I also think as well that the like for example in my sort of own productivity, I don't actually note take. I'm probably going to get berated in the comments. I actually don't note take whatsoever. Disgusting. I don't note take whatsoever, so I just don't really have an app for that whatsoever, which is strange. But again, you've got to design stuff around what works best for you. So these all-in-one apps, you may have end up using five out of 15 of the features. But if those five features meet your needs well, then you may not actually use the 10 others.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which apps do you use, can you tell us reveal to us your personal stack currently, including any AI tools? Like which AI tools are you actually using, as well as productivity apps?
Um, I use Todoist as my task management app. I also use Craft, which I use more as like not note taking. It's more like build an idea out, like conceptually. And then I use Superhuman as my email app. But it's strange because I don't really use many productivity apps. That's why people find it really weird when I
Mm,
review them, but I actually don't use too many of them. Like my stack's
mhm,
getting smaller and smaller.
mhm,
um, but I use for AI. I don't use as many tools for AI. Like I use smaller ones that you would probably know for specific like Opus and like the sort of creator based side of stuff, so more
mhm,
specific.
mhm,
But the two core ones that I use as part of like my routine are probably superhuman because I spend a lot of time in email now and I use their sort of AI search functionality and help to sort of refine that. And then I use obviously ChatGPT is my go-to solution. I think one of the problems with myself is that I'm so in the tools and checking out what's latest. I know all of them, but I don't like to throw myself into it too much, if that makes
mhm.
sense.
Totally.
Um, so probably in a few years, when I've sort of narrowed things down, I probably will use more agentic based workflow tools where I hook up a couple of things up and then go from there.
So, okay, so this is interesting. So superhuman for emails, you said the search function. Are you using like the thing where AI writes your responses for you? Auto compose or something like that?
Yeah, I've started using that. Like it's actually pretty accurate in terms of like what it comes back sometimes. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll change one word and then send it. And so that's pretty good. But I think the search is probably more valuable to me because
Hmm.
I could just be like, something hyper specific, like what was that thing that Tiago mentioned 3 months ago? And it actually
Hmm.
comes out with something
Hmm.
useful.
Yeah.
And then like chat, I have so many conversations with a day, um, to the point where I sort of take an idea that I'm having and sort of like crunch it down even
Hmm.
further.
Hmm.
And I find that really beneficial.
So superhuman for search and communication via email, ChatGPT for general purpose chats.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking about this is I'm really curious, like there's so much hype right now around AI, right? We're
Mm.
hearing we're hearing it's like the gap between the frontier of hype and then what is actually reliable, like completely reliable and usable day to day is like wider than I've ever seen, right? I get on Twitter and everyone's like, "Oh, agents are here. Agents are now gonna, do your work for you, blah blah blah." And then I go and I try an actual AI tool and it fails in like 5 seconds, right? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, is it just me? Is this like is this a skill issue? Am I just not understanding? And so I'm curious, like, what do you think in the world of day-to-day productivity, what is real? What is just hype and marketing BS? And what
Mm.
do you see as the true fundamental breakthroughs that can actually start to change our day-to-day work?
Yeah, like that's a really good question because there is like specifically X or Twitter,
Hmm.
the that sort of stuff is when you see a new tool, it's like this is going to change, this is a game changer, it's going to change your life. When you try it out, it's like it's not ready yet to change your life, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. There's
yeah.
there's few that have really, really blown me away. Like Google Notebook LM is probably one of those better tools, and the same with Google AI Studio, but they also come with their own problems to
Mm.
some extent.
Yeah.
I would say there's sort of three parts to this. The first part is the administration part. So I would say that the tools that are implementing this well are the ones that so for example, for your note taking, are the ones that automatically tag your notes and organize them for you.
Mm,
That administrative work is a lot better.
mm,
So there are apps like Capacities that do this fairly well. For example, another one could be a note task management. So in Sansama, you can add a task and it automatically adds it to a project and a time for you,
mhm,
estimation of a time.
mhm,
It doesn't get 100% accurate, but I think it said the other day that I'd run 5K in 15 minutes, which is definitely wrong.
mm,
Um, but it's taking the administration from a couple of clicks that you would have done before
mhm,
and move it away.
mhm,
The second part is efficiency, and that takes a little bit more time to like organize your day and structure your workload. So there are apps like Morgan that can help you to sort of automatically allocate your tasks based on a set criteria that you pull out. And then there are apps. Obviously, we've seen a lot of sort of AI apps in the chat. Fellow that can help sort of automatically extract tasks for you and organize where they go into, say,
mhm,
your CRM tool.
mhm,
And then the final thing that I think really is untouched is the errands element of AI. And they're the small micro actions that will start happening for you.
mhm,
And we talked about it briefly there with Superhuman with the auto draft function. So it prepares the email based on the reminder that you've set.
mhm,
But there are other tools like Two's app, which is a note-taking tool, and
mhm,
to-do list app that you can start now adding things like that you need for the shops, and it will start pulling the Amazon information and things like that that you connect to your account. So
mhm.
it's these micro, lightweight activities that will actually become really valuable. So it's admin, efficiency, and errands that are the most important next stages for AI.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, it's taking over admin, it's taking over, what was the second one?
Efficiency.
Efficiency and errands. So th those are sort of like these little ways that AI is sort of seeping up bottom up
Mhm.
through specific features, but then which is sort of a bottom up movement. But then there's also the top down, which is just basically like using ChatGPT. Like what do you use? What are the kinds of conversations and chats that you're having with ChatGPT?
For me, it's probably sometimes I sort of can't unpack a problem in my head, like a revenue opportunity or a business idea or something like that. So for sort of founder head on, I struggle with talking through an idea. So I typically talk through the idea with it, and it makes starts to formulate my concepts and then turn them into actual genuine things I can put my foot down on. But yeah, there's that like the top down apps will eventually come. So there will likely be two sort of big movements with artificial intelligence, and there are obviously now, is the connection of apps with agentic workflows. So it'll be sort of if then statements for all of the different softwares you use, but it will be human uh, organized, or not human organized, but human controlled. So when you press a button, it probably do a third of the workflow and then obviously pause and then do a third of the workflow and a third of the workflow. And then there's likely going to be a lot of push towards the voice-based AI as well.
Mhm.
Because I think we're typically trained to use the keyboard quite a lot. And when you take away the administration of work and the need to tap on the screen to move something over to a different project, that frees your hands up to be able to communicate with it more. And I think the movement of people working from home as well, that will have a dramatic impact on voice. So I feel like voice is going to become much more important when it comes to productivity because it will soon be able to. I'm seeing a lot of trend in the journal space at the moment with AI journaling apps that they're basically like meeting note tools that you just
Mhm.
spout all of your information to and it'll extract your mood, the achievements for the day, and that, but as tangible things that you can see. And that's quite exciting, I think, for people that are working at home to just tell a computer what to do in it to go and do things.
So this is a this is a great segue to the most upvoted question here, which is from Ariane or Ariane, which is so let's talk about different modes or modalities. Like it does strike me, and I agree that productivity software up until now was made for such a very specific kind of mind. You know, someone who was very visual, but specifically like textual and very
Mhm.
detail oriented, very linear and hierarchical. It was like I feel like there's like 5% of the population that fit all those criteria I just mentioned. And so so you mentioned voice and you briefly mentioned visual, but she asks, is there a task management tool where you can use language and text if you want to, but then also switch into a visual mode? She mentions a mind map or some other kind of like switch between text and some visual format if you're someone who likes to visualize your work visually.
hmm so there isn't, I think there's an AI based one. But there's one that basically, if you're a visual thinker and you want mind map combination, there's one called Task Heat,
Mhm.
all one word Task Heat, that essentially takes sort of one bubble, and you can even use AI to expand it into different things. But it's all based on task dependency, so you can go down each of the
Hmm.
options on
Hmm.
completion. But yeah, there's other ones like Task Aid. It's more for project management, but it does mind mapping functions and has a lot of AI agents in it as well. Um, but yeah, it's there are more and more voice task management tools too. I think she mentioned that at the start. Superlist is adding a lot of these voice-based functions, and Tana and Morgan also too.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it seems like a bit of a trend. Mind maps or other related visual aids.
Yeah, I'll definitely yeah.
Hmm. Guillaume asks about physical. What is the role of physical inputs, notes, files, folders? Do you see a place for those? If so, which, like, he mentioned specifically, like, if you have both physical and digital, how do you
Hmm.
recommend someone manage both of those?
Hmm. Uh, I'll put over here. A little like I just keep backups of a physical version.
Yeah.
Um, so like I think that's probably the best way to do it because you're always like especially in the UK, you always need those physical things.
Mhm.
So I really don't overcomplicate it. Like I just have like the most basic box with a filing system organized based on most important things of my life, like family, health, and then it goes all the way back to the least boring things like mortgages and stuff like that.
Cool. So you just keep two separate systems, one digital centric, one analog.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. They're different universes. Uh,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
can we
Like I
stop?
guess when you moved to Mexico,
Ugh.
right, you probably had to have these still in your hands, right?
Oh yeah, you definitely still need physical records in some cases, but I don't think it's worth creating a sophisticated system just for them.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and para, I mean, that's obviously goes without saying to structure
Yes. Of course. That's our religion around here.
it.
Um, Someone anonymously asked if you could say more about the trial part of the RTO method. What do you mean by this is actually a great question. What do you mean by
Mhm.
trial? What does it actually mean to trial a piece of software?
Yeah, so at the end of the research, I had to cover it fairly briefly, but at the end of the research, you want to go so deep that you have three options. That's your shortlist. Obviously, you want to make sure that number one's the best, but you want two fallbacks
Hmm.
so that when you come to the end of the trial and it's not successful, then you can do it. So the reason why I made it a forced trial was because you then have to ask yourself before you actually jump into the top tool on your list is, am I happy doing 90 days with this application? Am I
Mm,
happy to spend the time migrating over? Because if you're umming and ahhing about that, then you should probably start the research process again.
Mm,
because that will solidify your options. And then during the trial period, I typically recommend a weekly journal or notes of
mm,
the things that went well with the app that you chose
mm,
and that didn't go well.
mm,
Because if there are things that didn't go well, you can, for example, look at the company roadmap and see if there's a feature or function that was missing in the experience that is going to be added,
mhm,
or you can start to write your next must-haves for the research part if you start it again.
mm.
So that's how I would do the trial. But in some way, there's no real way to do it because without jumping into a tool, you do not know what it's like to use it on a
Yeah,
daily basis. So,
yeah. It's so true. My advice for this is that I typically give is to do one project. Do one
that's a good
project
idea.
because if you try to move all whatever it is, all your calendar data, your email data, your note data, your task manager data, especially your notes, it's sort of like it's like you've now done a whole bunch of upfront effort, right? And
Mm,
done this massive migration. And then the next day you could find a deal breaker. You could discover something that is a complete deal breaker. So now not only have you wasted all this time, but now you have duplicates of everything. So now you don't
yeah,
remember that I updated over here, here. It's just a huge disaster. So what I
yeah,
recommend is just getting one project. It can be an existing project or even a new project and
mm,
go the full cycle, one project from beginning all the way to the end. And that almost gives you like a full trial run of the like you said there's no way to know in advance. You can do hours of research. You can go through all the settings and click every button. I guarantee you will not discover the little fine-grained details that come up when you use it day to day, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. The thing that I would say is with note-taking apps, it's in particular the hardest.
Mm.
I compare it to a note-taking apps like moving house, uh, to-do list apps like moving car, and a calendar apps like moving phone. Phone's the easiest, but house is not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. Let's see. Some of these are very, very in the weeds, so I'm guessing they won't really apply to many people. Uh, oh my gosh. Oh, what's your approach? Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. What's your approach, Francesco, to the main divisions? Like, do you have an important distinction between work or personal or some other like work versus life or actionable versus non-actionable? Like if your digital second brain has hemispheres, what are those main parts or lobes or however you think of it?
Um, Probably not so much. It's weird. Like I just have a personal the majority of my work is in Todoist, I'd say. I probably spend about 70% of my productivity time in there. And I just have a personal project and then work projects. Like I really don't overcomplicate stuff whatsoever. I think it's because I get to see so many tools that I'm just like, I don't want to make things complicated. I just want to keep it really dumb and simple for me.
Yeah, makes complete
I'd love to
sense.
elaborate on it further. I used to have, like, I used to have this really intricate Notion structure. I was like one of the first people to do the templates and Life OSs.
Mhm.
And over time, it just became more to manage than
Mhm.
actually to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I tend to be the same way. Someone here in the chat asked, and I'm multitasking like mad, exactly like you're not supposed to do. Someone asked if I was thinking of moving to Amplenote or some other Life OS system, and the answer is not really. I am so loath to switch productivity apps. I basically won't do it unless the company goes out of business.
Right, okay.
Like, like, like unless there's just no other option. The last time I switched was from it wasn't even a truly core app. It was from Instapaper to Reader about maybe
Right.
6 years ago. That was the latest change. And I only did it because Instapaper was just like a dumpster fire that was just going down the drain. Like they were just breaking apart at the seams. And so I was finally like, okay, I will, I'll agree to change. But before besides that, I've been using Things, Evernote, and BusyCal for more than 10 years and I have no
Mm,
plans to change. The one exception is Obsidian, which I'm using to write my book because I'm
right.
finding that book writing, which is by far the biggest and most complex kind of project that I take on, that is the only kind of project that exceeds Evernote's capacity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like the only kind of project that I need that extra horsepower for that Obsidian provides is writing a book. Everything
Yeah.
else is simple enough that I can just keep it in Evernote.
But probably after you probably won't use Obsidian because it was your writer app, right?
I kind of doubt it. I kind of
Yeah.
doubt it. It has just enough friction, just enough overhead, just enough like too many features for my needs that I even after I've been using it now extensively every day for a year or more to write my book, and I don't have nearly the ease, that's just the complete fluidity and comfort with it that I have with Evernote.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. I think even you'll probably have some difficulty moving to things four if they ever do it.
I don't even, yeah, Things comes out with a new version about once every 5 to 7 years. And I'm like, dang it. Oh, new version. I hate it.
You're the first person that's ever said that in history. I
Let's
love it.
see. So we got about 10 minutes left. Question from Andre about voice. I'll kind of broaden this question. You mentioned that voice is becoming more and more important and will become more important. Do you have any voice activated or voice tools that you use or that you recommend?
Yeah, there's a couple of really good ones. So I haven't fully tried the super list features yet for it, but I have tried. I think it's coming soon is the Morgan side of stuff. I'm not sure I'll go too detailed on that because I'm not sure whether they have released it. Can't remember. But they're probably planning to release the sort of an assistant that allows you to communicate with your calendar and tasks. And I played with that and I was fairly impressed because it actually starts changing the user interface based on what you're saying to it, which is quite cool. There, you know what? I think that'll be a little time away. When the administrative side of stuff is a lot better in terms of doing less poking on the computer, that will become more so. But yeah, like I think I'm impressed with the AI note takers. Like a lot of the people have them here already, but they're pretty impressive what they do. I think if we can apply that same thesis to everything, it could be pretty powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, I tend to use Otter.
Mm,
Otter.ai is a great. They started way back 6, 7 years ago. They were just simple voice transcription, and over time
mm.
they've started doing more and more with voice.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's definitely the future. Um it's just maybe a bit early.
Yes, let's see. So someone asked here anonymously. Uh, let's see. How about financial management? It's not really traditional productivity, but do you have any good tips for financial management software?
No, I wouldn't say I'd know any good ones. I know apparently Yenab is good, but it's not available in the UK. You need a budget, is it? You need a budget. Apparently that's a really good one. But
Yes,
it's only available in the US.
that's the one I use. That's the one I use. I
Perfect.
love that it comes along with the whole philosophy. Oftentimes
Mm,
you open up a finance app, you're like, well, what are the financial principles upon which this is based? And it's just a mystery. So there's a great book called You Need a Budget, which is by the same creator as the app.
mm,
What about John? John here asks, let's say you do the RTO method, you decide you're going to switch uh, from Evernote or OneNote or one of the older ones to something like Notion. How
hmm
far back Should you transfer absolutely everything? Should you only go back a certain amount of time? How far back should you go with your migration, basically?
Um, if it were me, I'd probably only just go projects and areas in terms of the power system because you can add the resource. Well, you probably need the resources, but you can add the archive stuff at a later date as you go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, unless it has particular weight to the things like Notion AI, which obviously indexes all of the past stuff.
Hmm.
Unless you want it to be indexed by AI and help you with future decisions,
Hmm.
then I probably wouldn't worry too much. Like I look at my Evernote and a lot of the stuff in the past I wouldn't ever transfer over because
Hmm.
like I don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, my advice is the same. It's like it's the para hierarchy. Definitely move over projects because that's the day-to-day material you're working with like now. If you must transfer areas, because that has to do with responsibilities,
Mm,
resources, like only if like you said, if maybe AI can search through those.
yeah.
But archives, I would really just keep it almost like as a time capsule. Like if you
Mm.
could imagine if you like could this isn't really possible in the physical world, but imagine if you could keep a room of your house with all the stuff, everything related to that period of your life, and just seal it shut. That wouldn't really work because you want the use of your house. But imagine if you could just preserve everything just as it was at that moment in time, which you can do digitally. I think that's effectively what you do if you just keep the archives where they are and move things that are more timely and actionable.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's a good approach.
All right, we got a few minutes left here. Okay. Someone anonymously asked, this is something I've wondered about myself. It seems like one of the things that AI should be able to do, like some of the low-hanging fruit, and that people have talked about or promised for years, but I feel like never quite happens, is I feel like AI should be able to look at your calendar, look at your to-do list, and just tell you when to do your tasks. Just like
Mm.
schedule in based on different factors and different criteria when you should actually do those things. Is that something that you have actually seen an app do well? And if not, why do you think not?
Um, so yeah, so that's a really tricky thing to be able to establish. But the best ones I've seen do it is probably between Motion AI and Morgan. There's this feature in Morgan which I quite liked because it related quite to the Benta methodology, which we've developed, is something called smart frames. So you basically craft your week based on smart frames. So,
Mm,
like in the morning, you might do light work to kick the day off, and then intense work in the middle of the day. And then you might finish with some less intense work. So
mm,
you basically set these smart frames up and you connect up apps that you work with, like ClickUp, Notion, Todoist, whatever. And it just pre-populates with tasks that meet those criteria.
mhm,
And you can use the AI assistant to basically schedule all of those for you.
mm.
So that's probably the closest that I've seen to it being done in the market. But I like it because it correlates to the bento system more.
Yeah, I agree. It's well, my perspective on this is that I think I just tweeted about this or X'd about it or whatever last night, which is I think the decision of what task to take on next is actually a fantastically complex decision.
Hmm.
Like way, 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 way more than we realize. Like I think there's
Yeah.
like there's like literally hundreds of factors that have to be taken into account. Most of which we're not aware of. Most of which are completely subconscious. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
things like, if like I came out this morning, my feet were slightly too cold, and so that made me not feel like I could get into deep work, and so then I didn't work on my book, which is my main project. I did something else. Like
Yeah.
absurdly, like tiny little environmental factors, or maybe like an emotion is subconsciously creating a sensation that is making me avoid it. Like there's psychological, emotional, social, your metabolism, your energy level, your digestion. Like there's 100 levels of us And
Yeah.
something could be happening on everyone on any one of those levels to change that decision. I think that's my take on why it's actually really much harder for an AI to do that than we think.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. Because like an email could be coming in right now as we're talking that changes the
Yeah,
whole game.
yeah.
Um, I love this new sort of approach of energy plus productivity app. Because in the future, like our decision making is going to be the quality of our decision making is going to be much more paramount. So an AI system knowing, like what you said, your emotional state, your HRV, all of these different metrics
Mhm.
to how your day works. For example, like, if our little boy wakes up and he wakes me up at 4 a.m., in the future, that may potentially change what our productivity day looks like. Will it hit me with lighter tasks first,
Big
so that
time.
in later, when I have the mental capacity, and then it would suggest going to bed earlier, so that it can reorganize my day. So I
Yeah.
think there are some apps doing this as well. Life Stack, I think, is the one that is doing it quite well. There's another one, but it escapes me. So yeah, it's being focused on.
Francesco, as we finish up, how can people find out more about you and your work? And tell us about Tool Finder. What is the Tool Finder platform?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tiago, for having me on. But thank you, everyone, for listening along. If you ever need to contact me or just ask for app advice, you can always email me, or just ping me on Twitter or whatever it may be. Yeah, so Tool Finder's a place where you can just narrow down your search. You can use the search, or you can use the categories and just discover the best tool. So it's basically where the R of RTO happens.
Hmm.
Um, and we're also sort of embarking on our own app endeavors in the future to create more of a suite of apps. So I'm sure you'll take that. You'll enjoy that too.
Well, we're coming out with our Second Brain community app later this month, so maybe we can get a review.
Yeah, we'll have a look.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Francesco, so much for your time and generosity. Thank you, everyone on Zoom, on YouTube, for being here, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.